Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Diversity and Inclusion webinar. The title of today's session is Inclusive Communities Improve Resident Living Experiences. My name is Amy Allen, and I am the Senior Program Manager for the National Apartment Association's Education Institute. Thank you for joining us today for this incredibly important topic. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping points. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted on the Diversity and Inclusion Resources page of the NAA website early next week. We will send out an email when that link is available for you to view the session or share it with friends. During the discussion, you may type any questions you have for our presenters into the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will share them. We reserve time at the end of the session for question and answer, so please type them in as your questions arise, and we will be sure to get to them by the end of the session. Today's session is being brought to you by Home Depot Pro. So we'd like to thank them very much for their support of this very important endeavor that NAA has taken on with the support of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee and so many of you who have participated in this webinar series as we've moved along. I'm going to turn things over now to Rita Zepeda, who is on our Diversity and Inclusion Committee, so that she can tell you a little bit about our presenters for today. Rita?
Thanks, Amy. So I'm going to introduce all of our panelists. Today's panel will be moderated by Arianna Royster. She is the Executive Vice President at Borger Management. Arianna is also the Director for the Multifamily Housing Management. Arianna received her Certificate in Property Management designation from the Institute of Real Estate Management in 2002. She is a licensed real estate agent in Washington, D.C. and a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University. She previously served as the Assistant Vice President, where she directed all of the company's leasing and marketing efforts, as well as implementing all the training and development programs. Arianna is also the chair for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee at NAA. I would also like to introduce Mary Gwyn. She is the Chief Innovator of Apartment Dynamics. She has over 20 years of experience in the rental housing industry. She consults and trains for companies all over the country while operating an innovative management company, utilizing her marketing and operating strategies on our own portfolio to produce incredible results. Also in our panel, we have Cedric Hendrix. He is a marketing and training specialist at PRG Real Estate. He began his career in property management and has more than 17 years of experience. He truly enjoys challenging, fun, diverse teams and motivating his team members. He considers himself a mobile leasing trainer. He travels throughout PRG properties to assist with new hire onboarding. His goal is to ensure that newly hired leasing representatives have a good understanding of the PRG way and are set up for success. And last but not least, I would also like to introduce Jackie Ratzlaff. She is the Divisional President at Apartment Life. She has been with Apartment Life since 2008. She has worked in rehab and community-based healthcare until she was introduced to Apartment Life and pursued community-based work in the rental housing industry. She co-led the DFW region, as well as the expansion efforts in the Mid-Atlantic in Canada. And with that said, I will I would let Arianna take it from here.
Thank you, Rita. I appreciate the introductions. I would also like to thank our NAA and our chairperson, our NAA chairman, Mike Holmes, for their continued commitment to diversity and inclusion. We know that inclusive communities have a major impact on lived experiences of those who call our communities home. Inclusive communities create a space where residents feel valued. Inclusive communities create the space where residents feel safe and understood as well. Our amazing panel today will explore the importance of examining community practices, the impact of inclusive communities to the resident experience, training, and direct examples of how inclusive community design creates a positive resident experience. So let's dig in. Diversity and inclusion in creating opportunities for everyone has always been my passion. So I want to hear from our panel. Why is diversity and inclusion important to you? And let's start with Mary.
Well, thank you for this. I'm so honored to be on this panel and humbled. Few people would know this about me, but when I was 22, I had my own business. I did monogramming on clothes. And so people brought me their towels, their shirts, and I basically had a sewing machine set up in an 8x10 office space. And I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And in that office space, some of my neighbors had these wonderful professional businesses. And one of the men in the building who owned his own business came and asked me about my business. And I was proudly telling him my business plan. And when he left my office after I had told him this great plan, he said, "Well, honey, with your looks, you're bound to make it work out." Well, it didn't give me a chip on my shoulder, and it didn't make me think badly of him, but I thought, I really want to be on a mission to help people succeed and thrive regardless of their looks, their sex, their race, their color, their whatever. And it's just been a passion to me that people be successful regardless of any of those factors. And I would say too, one of the things I love about the multifamily industry is just like our communities are diverse and should be inclusive, this industry, to me, is diverse and inclusive.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Mary. I think I'll go ahead and jump in. I agree with Mary. It's such an honor to be here. This is such an important topic. It's something that we've talked about a lot at our organization. So our organization is a little bit unique because we not only are our own company, we're a company, and we spread across 30 states, and we have coordinators and teams on like 600 properties, and we have about 100 employees. So we are a company, but then we also contract and work with 600 different communities, and we partner with countless property companies. Mm-hmm. So all of our coordinators are also representing not just us, but representing those companies, and they're representing all of those residents. It's like 175,000 residents. So we find ourselves in a really unique position, not just to embrace inclusion and belonging as who we are, but also to make sure that we are building community on site, on the communities where we serve, in a way that represents that company, in a way that represents those residents, and in a way that's meaningful to them. So it's just a very unique balance between, our CEO always talks about, we really want to embrace oneness and belonging in our head, our heart, and our hands. So we want to all know how important this is in our heart. And as leadership, we talk about this all of the time, being a safe place, promoting safe venues for people to experience oneness and inclusion. So we need to all believe that in our head, or in our heart. And then through our practices, through education, we can promote that on site. And then through the program that we offer to communities, our hands, it's something that we can bring residents into a safe place, and also honor the property companies that we work for. So that's just sort of a unique kind of position that we stand in, not just ensuring that this is super important for us as a company, but also something that really represents all of you well, and really represents the companies that we serve and the residents that we serve every day.
Okay, thanks, Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I'm next. So what I like to do, I want to make sure that I can help close the gap and try my best to try to create some consistency. I think it's very important that we treat everyone the same way, whether it's a prospect, resident, or even our peers. I think that needs to happen. And in this business, we all should follow the same, fair housing laws that we have in place, regardless of the class of properties that we have. I think focusing on the importance of customer service, training, all our team members so that we're all on the same page is definitely important to me as well. And, I like to make sure everyone's going to have the same opportunities that we all have to get promoted, other opportunities within our company so that we're all on the same page and the same level. And me personally, I try to be a happy guy. So I try to bring happiness to work every day. So I try to make sure that follows me wherever I go. And I would love to see in this business, that we be kind, respectful, and treat everybody the same way, regardless of the size of the property, the class of property, and then the location. And the resident profile. At PRG, we have so many diverse communities, and I'm trained to train regardless of the style of property. And so I just want to make sure that we can get that consistency out and just close all the gaps.
Thank you all. I see that the panel shares in my passion. And Jackie, I love that. Head, heart, and hands. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So recently, NAA has had a focus on diversity in our industry, but let's shift this conversation to the residents. Why is it important to examine resident community inclusion? And before we start with Mary, we're going to do a couple of polls. So if you will just turn your attention to your screen and participate in our polls. So this is the first poll question. Does your company have a D&I or DE&I program geared towards residents? So we'll let you fill out that poll, yes or no.
It wouldn't let me vote. I'm disappointed.
Right, we aren't able to vote.
Yeah, I was pushing on my screen. I don't know if y'all could tell.
And so, Amy, I'll let you direct us in terms of the poll and when people have participated.
Okay, we're a little bit past half of the group, so we'll give it another 15 seconds for everybody to get their vote in.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, here's your results.
All right, interesting panel. 70 to 76% of our audience, their company does not have a program geared toward residents. So great, you'll learn a lot today from our panel and how you can go back to your respective companies and talk about that, start the conversation. So we're ready for our second poll. You put that up for us, Amy, thank you. What helps make apartment communities feel inclusive for our residents? So is it our resident activities, employee training, social media, marketing and advertising, or all of the above? So we'll give about, 15, 30 seconds to have you all participate in that poll question.
While they're voting, was anybody surprised by the last statistics? We make such a large emphasis on employee diversity and inclusion training. Was anybody surprised by the number on the other?
I don't think so. Yeah, I wasn't surprised. So looking at the results of our second poll, all of the above. Well, that's good to hear, right? Mary, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you. There's so many reasons that it's important to focus on resident and community inclusion and not just employee diversity and inclusion. And one of the biggest reasons is that if for no other reason, it's good for business. Google did a survey, and 64% of people responding to it said that they took action after seeing an ad they considered to be diverse or inclusive. 64% took action after seeing a diverse, an ad they thought was diverse. So you think just business alone is a great reason to look at our apartment communities and practice inclusion. But even better than doing it for selfish reasons, it's really important to look at it so we're serving all our customers and not just some. Really tagging on to what Jackie said earlier, how many of you grew up in a neighborhood where, say, the next door neighbor could punish you or send you home if you were bad? Raise your hand. Yeah, most of us. And, or if something was wrong in your home, they would provide a meal. Or my mom got pneumonia, my dad worked all the time, and the next door neighbors, while mom was in the hospital, they provided meals, they picked us up from school, they even made us do our homework. Neighborhood and community is so important to our apartment communities, and our world is diverse. Our cities are diverse, our apartment communities are diverse, and really we should be intentional in creating this inclusion, because that is not just good for business, although it is, it's just good for the neighborhood, for what Cedric said about kindness and just creating a great community.
Thank you, Mary. I like that. Being intentional, that's important. We need to be intentional about what we do. So it is important to evaluate marketing items for a real-time snapshot of your community. And by that, I mean being able to take a look at social media, digital marketing, website, community events, our offline marketing, to get a clear depiction of who's being included. Do the demographics represent the true resident population? Cedric, do you have a snapshot of the community?
So that's more of a yes or no answer for me. But let me just tell you, excuse me, about my role and what I do and to try to help that snapshot. So again, I call myself the traveling trainer for PRG. So I go to all our properties, and help train all our new hires. So I like to look at their social media to see what they have, look at their websites prior to visiting this, just to see if our advertising is diverse or inviting. So I check that out first. And even with new hires, like once they're there, I want them to look at their website as well and just to see what they see. Are we going in one direction versus the other? I want to see what stands out. Excuse me. We try to keep our marketing, of all people, so that we're not choosing one type versus another. We try to include everybody in our events, whether you have pets, kids, dogs, cats, whatever. We try to make it all universal so that we can be fair. We pay attention to we need to pay attention. Excuse me again. Sorry. We need to pay attention to what we're posting on social media just to make sure that we are doing it. Sometimes we forget. We might do the same color, the same picture, the same people, just to make it easier, just to get out the way because we have to post. But I think we need to just pay attention to why we're doing it. And even if we're doing like some type of outreach marketing, the old school outreach marketing, or we're going to these high paying jobs versus just any type of jobs. So I think we need to pay attention to that type of stuff and keep it in track of what we're doing. When we communicate in our advertisement, are we asking ourselves, are we getting everybody involved? Or are we just picking and choosing because we're supposed to do it? Or that's one of our rules that we have to do. But I like, for us to look at ourselves as a prospect and go out and look at our marketing or our advertisement and ask yourself the question, are we doing the right thing? Are we being diverse? Or are we just being normal? We're not normal, we're just doing what we have to do. So we just need to look at the other side and put ourselves in the prospect of the resident's shoes and make sure we're doing the right thing.
Boy, Cedric, you really hit something with me, we use a marketing checklist and we review ads once a month. But one of the things you said hadn't even really been on my radar, the business outreach. Are we reaching out to businesses, which we do, but are we doing it diverse, or are we just doing the biggest company nearby? And so I think you make a really good point. And I recently had kind of a marketing fail, and I think there's some slides to show you. Y'all are going to see the backside of my company in a marketing fail if we can get the slides up. So we use that marketing audit, but in this particular case, I was reviewing a brand new website before it went live, y'all, before it, and it was done by a really good company that I'm used to working with. But when I looked at the pictures, they used a whole lot of just canned stock photos. And if you can flip to the first one for me. So that's the first one. And then the next one, just kind of scroll through if you don't mind until the collage comes up. Another slide or two. Another one. And stop here if you will. You can see everything they propose. We don't even have a swimming pool at that property, by the way, but there was even a lovely pool shot and not a diverse group of people at all. And, you know, does anybody really look like stock photo people? Are there like 5 people that are just used over and over and over again? It was such a marketing fail to me and such a disappointment because it didn't, the particular property is in a really neat area of Raleigh that is colorful and culturally diverse. And it would be so beautiful to take a snapshot of that community. And the good news is, you know, obviously I audited it before it went live. But the fact is, things do happen where a picture gets substituted or something, your well-meaning manager posts something. In fact, those things can happen. It used to be I worried about, did the toilet shot accidentally get posted on the first page of our ad? But now it's really what pictures are we posting, and not just what pictures, but what message are we sending? What's our marketing message? And if you'll flip to the next one, it's very easy to audit some of our marketing. It's really easy to look at a snapshot of your Instagram, for example, and you can see, am I diverse? We obviously think we're really funny at my company and post lots of puns, but are we sending the right message of who we are as a company, what services we provide, who we want to encourage and include in the conversation? In your actual apartment communities themselves, one of the neatest ways to be inclusive and to send that right message is, instead of featuring your staff and yourselves all the time, really tell your resident stories. Feature your residents. We feature our pets once a week or once a month, but feature your residents. We have the essential workers working in hospitals. We have the stay-at-home parents that are trying to work from home and Zoom school for their kids. We have the ones that are doing those special things for their neighbors. And so I think tell your resident stories, and I think you'll by virtue of that, you'll really be creating inclusive marketing. But regardless, even with that, once a month, use a checklist and really stop and look at a snapshot of your marketing and your marketing message. It's just really important.
Thank you, Mary and Cedric. It is extremely important because a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And when we perform our marketing, people are looking at pictures. You know, we create all of this wonderful content or verbiage, but what are the first things we look at? The pictures. And so the picture speaks to the story and it speaks volumes. So thank you for providing those examples. Jackie, How
Yeah.
can we see the impact of inclusion both online and on site? And what can properties practically do to improve that impact?
All right, so for your first question, you mentioned two specific ways to see impact on site and online. So I'm going to talk about reviews online, and then once we see what's happening online, we need to go on site and make sure that we are promoting an inclusive community through engagement. So what do your reviews say? Do your reviews just mention the amenities? I can love the decorations in my neighbor's house. It can be a beautiful house. If I don't feel welcome there, I am not coming over for dinner, right? So do the reviews, the initial reviews, just mention the amenities, just mention the beauty? That's important. It's not everything, and it doesn't give a full picture of whether the resident feels included. So you want to see residents talking about some kind of a human element, like friendships, like connections, feeling like home. These kinds of comments indicate a community that's welcoming, a community that shows the resident is feeling included. Talking about how they were treated, talking about fun activities that they got to go to and meet people. So you want to look for a human element in your online reviews as well. The second piece you mentioned is on-site, or specifically engagement on-site is what we really look into at Apartment Life. So this one's easy for me because we use an event strategy to build community. You guys can all have that same goal by using your properties, events, resident activities, whatever you do to engage residents. It's really important to use this as a strategy to bring them into a space of belonging. So not just a wine and dine, or not just a wind down Wednesday to check a box, but using your activities as an important strategy. So what does that strategy look like? This was your second question, Arianna. So what can properties practically do to improve the impact, specifically in resident engagement? So take some notes. If you guys, for those of you who said that you don't have a strategy focused towards your residents, I'm going to give you 3 super specific ways that you can focus on your residents and on inclusion through your monthly resident activities. All right, so like we said, events don't need to check a box. You can use them intentionally. So the first way that you can use events and activities is to create healthy dialogue that's not intimidating. One of our teams recently hosted an event called Blind Date with a Book, where residents all brought in a favorite impactful book, but they brought it wrapped. They all shared about why they brought this book, why this book was meaningful, but they didn't say what the title was. It was a really neat just space of getting to know each other, getting to know their neighbors, hearing what people's experiences are through literature, so it felt safe. And then everyone went home with a different book, unwrapped it. There was a strategy around it, like post a picture of the book that you got. They had a hashtag, did a whole thing. So this cool kind of safe dialogue that had started on site then was translated to online. And now they're beautifully set up for a part 2 to talk more about the books. You can go to Apt Life on Instagram, and you can actually see all of the books unwrapped. And I would say 90% of them are culturally diverse books, books that are meaningful to us, like deep books that are meaningful to us, have something to do with who we are as people. And so an event like that is really going to create healthy dialogue and get residents in a space of belonging. So first example, healthy dialogue. Second way to use events, celebrating diverse cultures. So this can happen through holidays and seasons, through food and music. One of our teams in Arizona hosted an event called Lyrics on the Lawn, and they invited a resident who is a local musician, and he is from Native American culture, and he played and he sang acoustic music that he wrote from his culture. And it was just a really neat cultural event that celebrated a culture that a lot of residents are part of. And then the last example is to promote educational opportunities through your events. So if you are in a community that's walkable, you can gather a group and go visit a local museum. You can visit an art exhibit. You can bring those things in. Vendors and local experts will come in and they'll bring art or they'll bring a talk they'll share with your residents. Better yet, you can tap into your residents, have one of them teach a class, play music. teach how to make a certain food, but bring other residents into diverse culture through educational opportunities. So there you go. Create healthy dialogue, celebrate diverse cultures, promote educational opportunities through your events online. I mean, I'm sorry, through your events on site, not online.
That's great. And I can see, Jackie, how that ties. So you talked about the online presence, but when you create that healthy dialogue and having those cultural events, then that turns right back into residents posting, you know, their experiences, which are positive. So the two go hand in hand. That's
and
great
it gives
information.
you, and it gives you a human amenity. You have wonderful property amenities. You have marketing that says who you are, and then this gives you a human amenity so they can experience it in person.
Perfect. I like that. So Cedric, our traveling trainer, how do we train teams to be intentional about resident inclusion?
So I actually feel that resident inclusion should start from day one. You know, so that way we're prepared. And again, my position required me to be fair, open-minded, patient, and so I have to be diverse. I have to be open-minded. I have to be ready in my position because I never know who I'm going to be able to train. And patience definitely plays a plus in my role. So I'm prepared to be that way. But to be fair and open-minded, this is a must. And then I teach everyone they have to connect quickly and be ready to answer the phone or to help someone and walk through the door. We have to be prepared. We never know who it's going to be. There might be a language barrier. Who knows? So we have to be prepared and be prepared to handle it. So understanding the new person's learning style is what I try to do so that I'm able to, take it slow, move fast, or work at their pace so they get an understanding of what I'm trying to teach them to do. So of course, we require all our employees to take a fair housing course once a year, so that way we're on the same page. And it's also important for me to explain the why we do this and why we do that, so that they understand why we're doing it, so they just not have to do it. There's a why to everything. And communication, body language, tone are also things that I try my best to communicate, to make sure that we treat people the same way, we're on the same page. Don't let your shrugged shoulders cause the problem, or your facial expression, because you're tired of dealing with this person or whoever. So all that plays a part. And at the end of the day, we have to be fair, firm, and consistent at all times. And I think sometimes we forget the rule of treating people at the level of respect that we want. We forget it sometimes, and I think we need to go back to the old school stuff and bring that back. And then I think, and I also teach my people how to remove the judgment hat. I think we wear that judgment hat so often that it's time to remove it, throw it away, and let's just get it out the way and let's start fresh. My job, is to stress the importance of policies, procedures, and to make sure we're on the same page. And I do that as and I think lastly, consistency and effective communication and training is a key to inclusion. And I think if we communicate well, lead by example, and follow the right policy procedures, diversity and inclusion is all part of my training.
Great. And I liked that you said you teach them the why, because then it doesn't become a checkbox, right?
Exactly.
When you understand why you're doing something and you have the buy-in, then it becomes second nature, and it's just not checking a box. And then the residents also feel as though it's genuine and you're not just something that I had to do because Cedric told me so, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
You're not a robot. We're not robots. You got to do it because I'm a robot,
And people see through that, don't they? They can tell when you're checking the box.
Exactly.
We all love to be treated well, and we love to experience the connection, the human connection. And so I think that's great that you're training people to understand why they're doing things and how they should treat our residents. And obviously, we all know in property management, consistency.
Got it.
Consistency is the key. Thank
You
you for
know,
that.
I also think that sometimes again we forget that we were on the other side before, and just for example, if a resident come home at 5 o'clock and the toilet stopped up, I've heard people say, well, why they wait till 5 o'clock? Well, if I'm sure they didn't know it, they just got home, so we gotta, even for that example, we gotta put ourselves in their shoes, understand they didn't do that on purpose, it just happened. And so we need to have an open mind to understand that they just got home and this just occurred, and I'm just letting you know. So we just need to put ourselves in the prospect resident shoes sometime and wear it and remove that hat. Stop it, throw it away.
Absolutely. So Mary, let's talk about how we can make an impact by advocating for residents through sharing insight from our on-site teams.
Oh, wow. And Arianna, our on-site teams, they know too much sometimes. And if we didn't know how essential and how just incredible our on-site teams were before, a pandemic sure does demonstrate it, because they're dealing with our residents who, they already were selling a product that was residents' home, but now a study by Satisfact said that roughly 60% of our residents are working from home. So the issues and drama and life that they're getting to share with their customers has just increased exponentially. Like, who knew trash was going to become a problem, or parking, or noise from your neighbors? There are just so many things. And our on-site teams really know and feel what our residents are going through. So, and we've tried to give them an avenue to kind of help and be more inclusive and more intentional toward doing what they can to help our residents. Like, it used to be when someone came in to pay their rent or get a cup of coffee in the office, we'd say, is there anything you need in your apartment today? And we're trying to be more, is everyone okay in your apartment home? Is everybody in your household well? We're trying to frame different questions and really show kindness and empathy in a bigger way. I think our industry's always tended to hire empathetic people, but we're reframing the question. Even if we're calling to collect rent, we're asking the question, everything going okay? Anything you need that we can help you with? We've also tried to be a resource. We've tried to stay up on what companies are hiring in our markets, or what resources there were if they needed financial or other help. And that's given our team members the ability to truly communicate to us, gosh, I've got people who are struggling, they're out of work, or they don't have enough internet, or and they're homeschooling and working from home, or all these different things. We've just got to be able to listen to our site teams in an effective way. And we're trying to do that through weekly manager calls, reframing that instead of it being us giving output and saying, okay, you need to get your paperwork in quicker or whatever. We're trying to listen a little more effectively and better. And we're having weekly town halls with all our employees. Not everybody's going to speak up on a town hall, but hopefully that means when we're out in the field, they can communicate what issues they're having. And I know in some ways this doesn't sound like inclusiveness and diversity, but it really is. It's engaging in that whole community and what the needs are right now. And we've done something fun that I've seen other companies doing variations of. We have a slide on it, I think, if it's able to come up. We've got a program where just advocating for and doing things for our residents. It's an acronym SPARK, and it's spotlighting positive acts of random kindness. And it's given our team members an opportunity both to do something good and share it with other team members, or I spot you, Arianna, doing something good, so I report it to the Spark email address, or we see a resident doing something kind and we share it as well and send a thank you to that resident. It's an opportunity to really include all our team members in communicating what needs there are and really do something about those needs on site.
Yeah, I like that, Spark, because we know it's a difficult job that our on-site teams are dealing with right now. And I'm really happy that NAA created the Apartments Teams Day. And that made a world of difference, I know, to our on-site team. And even with our residents, you know, having our residents participate and be able to let our on-site teams know how much we appreciate them, and just having good news, right? Someone doing something for someone else is good news and lifts our day. So I think that's a great idea. Jackie, can you share some insights into training and inclusion surrounding community involvement?
Actually, I do have an example of kind of how, let's see, your question was training and inclusion and community involvement. And we have a developer here in Charlotte who really involves the local community anytime he builds or develops something in a diverse area. And then he trains the staff of the management company that he brings in on their common goals. So the developer's name in Charlotte is Tim Sidema, and he has a company that he started that's a nonprofit called Freedom Communities. And we follow Freedom Communities because they own apartment properties in various areas of the city that are diverse areas. And rather than just saying, hey, this is who our company is and we're going to build a property that we want to build, he goes into those areas of the city and he's already getting the local community involved and saying, hey, how are you involved in this area? What kind of, he talks to Parks and Rec, what kind of parks are here? Is there an anchor church? Is there a school that the students are going who live in this area? And let's partner with all of these city organizations and community organizations. And he gets them to kind of train his staff on, how they can come in and be part of that community so that it is a cooperative effort instead of, them sort of coming in like with a housing solution. They're coming in as a cooperative effort, and he is willing to accept training from organizations that are already working with the people local to that community. So Freedom Communities is one. There's a similar project in Orlando called Lift Orlando that partners with a lot of communities, and it goes a little bit more to the design aspect, but also to being willing to not just be a trainer, but also understand and immerse yourself into what that community already has and what the residents are already involved in and learning from that. Crescent is another developer who goes into different areas of cities and really immerses themselves into getting to know that particular area of North Davidson or that particular area in Atlanta, and then everything that they design and build is around there, and then they develop training for their staff that is unique to that particular area that they're going into, whether it's an arts district or a mixed use area. So they really wrap training into the culture that's already established.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's great. I didn't realize there were companies that actually provided that service, because we, think that we know because we've built 5 other buildings how it's supposed to work. But that makes a huge difference in how we then build our buildings and how we market. So that's a great suggestion for us. Thank you.
For sure.
So I have a couple of questions that have popped up. and I'll read them and I'll let our panelists decide how they'd like to answer or who'd like to answer. How do you increase resident engagement and inclusion in a smaller community?
Let's see, that was Gail's question. I had thrown a little bit of a response up there,
Okay.
but a great way to do that first is to poll residents. Someone else might have some better examples. The communities we work with are usually a little bit bigger, but polling residents. You can also set up a grab and go station at a time where residents are naturally, it's either a common area or a time when residents are passing through a gate or an entrance. Just kind of meeting them where they are rather than asking them to come to a common area if there's not one. You know, having them take something where you're able to offer a smile to engage them in conversation, find out a little bit about them as well. So you can also partner with local organizations, resourcing them with things that they might need, and getting to know kind of where they go, where do they go to hang out if there's not a common area on site. Is there a local park? Is there a place that provides that for them? And then meet them there.
Thank you. Here's another one. I think.
Can I add to that?
Oh, sure, please.
May I tag on to that? It seems like a great potential opportunity to set something up in a parking lot for a block party or a talent contest that they all come out and show their talent, or even something as simple, if there are a lot of pets, a little pet parade where they dress up their pets for Halloween or something like that. I think I don't have a 22 unit property, but I have a number of relatively small properties that don't have a clubhouse. They run the property out of, say, an apartment, and they always feel held back by that. Like, well, I can't have activities because my office is in a, is in a unit. But the outside space is a great space to use. You could possibly have an exercise or yoga person come and do some outdoor fitness with your residents if you have lawn. Think outdoors, and you can buy pretty inexpensive 10 by 10 tents from places like Costco or Walmart, where you even could host something where they come to the tent and then leave, wear their mask, social distance. But you just kind of have to think outside the office, outside the bun, outside the.
Even in cold weather, because you can do little fire pits, you can make s'mores, you can do hot cocoa or something fun to bring them together then too.
Yes.
And if I can add,
22.
if I can add one thing to that too, I've seen, this may sound kind of cheesy, but I've seen bingo on the go, where if you hit numbers throughout your property, since you're smaller, you hit numbers somewhere and you see your residents out walking, looking for the number, and then they can get to know each other, and then they can engage that way, by hiding a number somewhere on a tree or in a dog park, and then, and then announce the, and give them some kind of gift card for finding the bingo, the number or whatever. So that's something, might be cheesy, but it's something to do in a small community to get them involved, to get to know each other.
Yeah, those
I don't think that's cheesy.
I'm coming.
No, those are really good examples of things that you can do at small communities. And I like the s'mores example because s'mores are my favorite. So great example.
Everyone's favorite.
Everyone's like
favorite.
s'mores.
And if kids come, their parents will come. So that's important too. If there are children on a community and you do things geared towards kids, then you're going to bring adults as well.
Yeah. There was, I think, one other question I'm looking for, and it had to do with how you respond to residents who have a closed-mindedness about inclusion. And I apologize, I didn't frame it exactly the way it was asked, but I think that's the impetus of the question. Does anybody want to take that one, Mary?
It's a really good question. I wish I had a really good answer. We, when we have the crabby residents, we have sort of a philosophy of kill them with kindness. And I'm not sure if that would work in that case, but you just welcome them and include them and try to let them see kindness and get to know their neighbors in that way if you can. But I'm not sure if anyone else has something better to offer on that one.
I mean, I was going to say killing with kindness as well, but but you have to just do your thing, be yourself, and still be fair, firm, and consistent, regardless. And then they either going to tag along and pick it up or move out. But I mean, there's not much you can do when someone has a closed mind. But do your part, train your residents, and train them, and train your staff, and then just have to pick up and follow along. But killing with kindness is the key, one of the keys anyway.
We have had a couple of situations because our teams are sort of like ambassadors kind of between the residents and the staff. And so oftentimes if there is that crabby resident or even a negative resident, the staff will call our team and say, hey, would you engage this resident? Would you do something kind for this resident? And so we do experience those. And one thing that we found is finding out about them and asking them, like engaging them maybe in an activity or an event. So one resident we found out was a chef, and he was kind of crabby. He was pretty controversial, but we brought him in and had him lead an event, and it kind of built him up as well. There's a saying that says, hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. And so oftentimes if someone is dishing it out, they probably are experiencing some kind of hurt themselves. So if we can maybe pour into them in some way, which is the same, kill them with kindness, but you can specifically maybe engage them in your strategy as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great example, because we don't know everyone's story, and people love talking about themselves. And so once you are able to connect with them, then that could potentially change their whole view on how they deal with others. So I think our time is drawing near. I want to thank our panel today. You guys gave us some awesome information. It was really great. I know I took some nuggets, and I'm sure that our participants enjoyed it as well. So thank you guys so much for your insight. And I am going to, at this point, turn it over to, I think, Amy or Kara.
Thank you, Arianna. Thanks so much. And thank you to all the panelists. Before I turn things back over to Kara, I just want to give Brian from Home Depot a chance to say hi. He wasn't able to speak up at the very beginning. I apologize for that. So just to thank him for sponsoring us today. Brian, if you wanted to welcome everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. So my name is Brian Aguirre with the Home Depot. I'm the National Account Manager for our NAA Open Door Member Benefit Program. And we are pleased to support today's webinar. Thank you to the panelists for the great job leading today. Just wanted to take a moment to be brief here and just say the Home Depot is proud to support and sponsor Innovation and Diversity and Inclusion Grant that we recently promoted. Over the past 40 years throughout the company's history, we've built an environment where we take care of each other, build strong relationships, and truly value respect for all people. Diversity and respect for all people is really core to who we are as an orange-blooded family. So excited to be here on this webinar and learn and see the great job by the panelists again. So our company remains committed to standing with those who are committed to change that will bring us closer to more diverse and inclusive community for all. So thank you to the National Apartment Association for driving these awesome conversations. And thanks for all you do for the multifamily industry. Back to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian, very much. And now I'm going to just turn things over to Kara House, who's just going to share with you a couple updates of our next session. Kara?
Thank you, Amy. And thank you again to all of our panelists and to everyone who attended today's webinar. A lot of great information, really excited to see what comes next in this conversation. The next webinar as part of this series is titled Multicultural and Rental Housing. This webinar will provide you with skills to develop new social dexterity, attitudes, and behaviors, along with the flexibility necessary to work with prospects that either speak other languages, are from other cultures, or simply culturally diverse. We invite you to join us for this webinar on Wednesday, October 14th from 11 a.m. to noon Eastern Time. And of course, this session is being provided free of charge to attendees, so please sign up today and join us again. We also want to remind you that the deadline for the NAA Innovation and Diversity and Inclusion, or IDI grant, is today. This grant is a wonderful opportunity to advance your organization's implementation of D&I initiatives. So please head to the website listed on the slide to find out more information today. I'll hand it back to you, Amy.
Thank you, Kara. And that will wrap things up for us today. Just thank you to all of the presenters, for all of the participants for joining us. I hope you'll come back again on October 14th for our next session. And also remember that the entire series of webinars is available. The recordings of those webinars are available on the NAA website on our diversity and inclusion resources page. So we hope you'll check those out if you've missed any. And thank you for your participation today. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.